Om Stapakaya cha dharmasya sarvadharmaswarupini avatara varisthaya Ramakrishnaya te namaha. So, in the last session, we discussed some important teachings from Dhammapada, which are which are related to mindfulness. Though the most important foundational text on mindfulness is Satipatthana, but the teachings can be found in many other teachings and textbooks of Yogachara system, especially Yogachara Bhumi of Asanga and Vijnapti Matrada Siddhi of Vasubandhu. So when we read the Satipatthana and also the Dhammapada, you find some striking parallels, similarities between the idea of mindfulness and some of the spiritual qualities required from the standpoint of Vedantic tradition, required for the spiritual seekers of Advaita especially. Those who are trying to understand and practice Advaita are required to acquire certain preliminary qualifications, technically called sadhana chadushtayam, or 4 important prerequisites. It is outlined in the Brahma Sutra Bhashya by Shankaracharya when he discusses the first sutra itself, Athado Brahma Jignasa. And in a much more structured way, it is explained by the same teacher, Shankaracharya, in rather less important textbook, that is Vivekachudamani. So in 19th verse you can find, he clearly outlines the 4 important prerequisites for Vedantic learning, and you can find it as an important quality mentioned in the Sutra Bhashya, Shankaracharya's commentary on the Brahma Sutras, when he takes up the discussion of the first sutra. In the Sammanvaya Adhikarana, the first sutra is Adhado Brahma Jignasa, etc. What are the qualifications for those who start Brahma Jignasa in inquiry into the nature of Brahman? Now, in the Vivekachudamani, it is, as I mentioned, it is clearly outlined. Nitya Nitya Vastu Viveka Ihamutra Bhalabhoga Viraga Samadhi Shakka Sambhati Mumukshuttum. First, you should have a sense of discerning wisdom between what is real and what is unreal, and then you should be able to discard the unreal, the impermanent, and you should hold on to the permanent. And then a list of 6 great disciplines and spiritual qualities to be acquired through practice, called Samadhi Sarka Sambhati. And then finally the 4th one, a strong urge for spiritual liberation, enlightenment, moksha. Mumukshuttum is called. So desire for spiritual liberation. When he discusses the 3rd quality, which actually a category in which you can see a list of 6 qualifications, Samadhi, Sarka Sambhati, that's the 3rd one. I mean 6 qualifications beginning with Shama, that's the literal meaning. And Shama actually means mental restraint. Eventually at the beginning, one should be able to exercise self-control by avoiding doing things, either actions, ideas, thoughts, or samskaras, which are forbidden, which are detrimental to our spiritual progress. So, virajya vishayavrada dosha drishtya muhurmuhu sulakshe niyatavastha manasaha shama uchyate. That is shama. In fact, if you read Satipatthana and also if you read the Dhammapada, Apramada Bhoggo means Apramada Varga, that chapter dealing with wakefulness, the chapter dealing with mindfulness, so to speak. In fact, that's what Buddha is talking about, shama. So in Buddhist tradition also, there are two levels. First, practice as a discipline, and then finally you reach a point where you get established in that discipline. So when you get established in that discipline, there's a goal. When you practice again and again, it's called abhyasa. It is a discipline. So actually the means and goal are the same, really speaking. So it's something like what you learn at the early stage is the same thing that you end up, but you get established in what you are beginning. So you begin with mindfulness, you get established in mindfulness, and when you get established in mindfulness, you become an arhat, you become a liberated person. So this is a common thing that you find. Vijñapti Matrada Siddhi, in Vasubandhu's book, the text, the meaning of the text itself is Vijñapti Matrada. We should acquire Vijñapti Matrada. Vijñapti means Vijñanam. That is, you perceive everything, you understand everything, you also understand that everything is impermanent, so you don't hold on to anything, you remain as a witness. Again, the word witness is not allowed in Buddhism. That technical word is sakshi in Vedanta. But when you look at the practice aspect of both traditions, it is all the same. So this is a very important point. So Vedanta grounds mindfulness in the metaphysical reality of Atman. So that is a difference that we made. With any traditional Buddhist or any traditional academic Vedantic or academic Buddhist, I want to emphasize the academic, that word. From a philosophical point of view, it will be almost a blasphemy both for Vedantics and for a Buddhist to say that mindfulness is the same as sakshi or witnessship. Sakshi is an established term in Vedanta. The all-knowing drashta, the all-knowing subject. How does the subject know everything? Because the subject is not bound by anything. The subject is not attached to anything. So Vedanta apparently it focuses on Atman, an eternal, all-witnessing consciousness, which according to Vedanta philosophy is distinct from mind and body. That is, Sharirindriya Vidiriktam Atma. Atman is defined as distinct and different from body-mind complex. But then again in Buddhism, in mindfulness, mind is the all-knowing thing. So what is the mind in mindfulness? It is not the mind of Vedanta. It is the all-knowing platform, the all-knowing subjects. That's what Vijñapti, not really mind, Vijñapti or Vijñāta. Vijñapti means the state of being the knower of everything. Matrada means Vijñapti, Vijñānam alone, awareness alone, without any link to the object that it is aware of. The only difference is the mind has got a much lower ontological or metaphysical significance in Vedanta. On the other hand, that mind assumes the role of all-knowing witness Atman in Satipatthana or in mindfulness literature. So Buddhist mindfulness is based on the realization again of anatta. Literal translation is non-Atman. So what is the meaning of anatta? So the word atta, that is in Pali Prakrit, Atman in Sanskrit, or Atma. That always signifies something that is permanent, everlasting. So Atman is not the name of Atman in Vedanta. Atman is a term that you use for something which cannot be termed by any word. So what Atman signifies is not the word Atman, but the all-pervading eternal reality. And that all-pervading eternal everlasting reality is not accepted in Yogachara Buddhism, where everything is impermanent, momentary. So, in Buddhist mindfulness, you see all phenomena as lacking any kind of enduring essence. And therefore, when you are aware of the lack of everlasting, enduring essence, when you know that nothing is endured with everlasting essence or permanence, then you detach yourself. So that, or rather non-attach yourself. That non-attachment is even beyond the idea, well, I'm seeing this. So in other words, the non-attachment of mindfulness is not very different from the witness aspect of Vedanta. Why does a witness witness everything? The witness, second witness is a verb. Why does a witness able to witness everything? Because it is not attached to any particular individual objects. If you are attached to any single object, you cannot be witness of everything. It is attached to nothing, or it is witnessing everything. So the all comprehensive one and all negative zero is practically the same. Of course, in this respect, metaphysically, Vedanta comes closer to Shunyavada than Vijnanavada. Of course, I am talking only in the context of mindfulness. So the ultimate goal is to dissolve all mistaken conceptions of Atman and awaken to the natural, unconditioned state of mind. That mind is not the mind of Vedantin. Remember. So mana is the word used in Vedanta. And mana is one of the four components of antakarana, internal organs. Antakarana means mind. Chitta is a repository of all memories. I am the seer, awareness. And again, the deciding faculty. Well, first the speculative faculty, mind, then deciding faculty, this is that, and finally you remember, I've seen this last week or sometime earlier, that I am this one who is seeing all this. So these four components together is called antakarana in Vedanta, but actually the mind of mindfulness philosophy assumes the role of all-knowing, all-witnessing drashta, seer, perceiver, subject of Vedanta. Because that, in fact, I'm trying to, again, don't ever I'm not trying to be simplistic, but the point is, from a very superficial point of view, you may see a total lack of similarity or closeness between the two philosophical systems. But what a Buddhist meditator achieves eventually is the same that a Vedantin meditator achieves. For example, this particular two qualities I'm taking from Samadhi Sampatti. One is Shama. So virajya vishayavrada dosha drishtya muhurmuhu sulakshe niyatavastha manasas shama uchide. So the Shama or self-restraint of mind is defined here. What is this? You should first of all withdraw your mind from all external objects of desire or attachment or entanglement. And then what you should do, and of course there is a process of doing it, so like that is dosha drishtya muhurmuhu. You should always remind yourself that all these external objects, phenomenal empirical world, all these are distinct and different from the eternal reality in Vedanta, that's Atman, and therefore you focus exclusively on the reality of Atman. When you focus on Atman, you are able to withdraw yourself from all these external phenomena, and you are able to practice non-attachment from all these external empirical world and objects of desires. That's the same non-attachment that a Buddhist meditator is trying to achieve through mindfulness. Sati, Upattana, Sutta. Sati means smriti, awareness. That's meaning. That awareness is the essence of the witnessship in Vedanta. A witness is aware of everything. So being established in awareness, the witness is able to detach himself from all external things. So the Sakshi or witness in Vedanta is trying to make use of this eternal reality, Atman, to practice mindfulness. And in mindfulness, a Buddhist is trying to detach himself from all external momentary objects by focusing on mind itself. But the mind of a Buddhist is different from the mind of a Vedantin. The mind as understood under Vijnanam or Vijnapti, Yogachara system, is totally different from the mind as understood in Vedanta. The mind as understood in Vedanta is philosophically, spiritually very insignificant compared to Vijnapti. So Vijnapti is something called Vijnanam or Vijnapti or awareness, Sati, so technically speaking. Again, there is another related to this, that is Dhamma. Vishebhi paravarti sthapanam sussugolage upayesham indriyanam so Dhamma parikirtitaha. So when you get established in Yama, when you are able to restrain your mind from all external objects, naturally you are able to control the activities of the senses, and that is called Dhamma. So Dhamma means Indriyanam so Dhamma. I mean, when the mind is being dragged, this Vedanta, when the mind is being dragged by the senses towards external objects, then you prevent the awareness of those external objects from coming into your eyes, coming to your mind. Rather, you stop it at Golake. So Golaka is, it is not a physical entity. In Vedanta, they say there is an inner system behind the eye. So Vedantins give the example. Suppose you are looking at something, but you are not seeing that. So, see, when you are closely looking at an object, you are getting a complete view of that object. That is one way you are looking and seeing. It means the visual object is able to register its impression on your mind, mental system. That's why you are not only looking, but you are seeing. But you may be, with great focus, you may be looking at an object. Mind will be somewhere else. So there, you are not seeing the object, though you are looking at objects. What is happening is that the visual image of the object doesn't enter your mind. It stops at Golaka. So Golaka is between the eye and the mind, so to speak. When you are looking at the object, you are not seeing it. So a person who practices Shama is able to see everything, look at everything but without seeing. Maybe seeing everything, but the impression of the visual experience doesn't register itself in the mental system. Now, this is exactly what mindfulness practitioner is doing, nothing else. That's what he is doing it. He is not running away from the world. He is living this world, looking at this world from a different perspective. So that's why both Vedanta and Buddhism though stress attention, presence and cultivation of an observer consciousness. Again, this is a common thing. An observer consciousness. Observer means witness, called Sakshi. So eventually you find even the Yogachara himself has to lean upon something which is not part of the empirical experience. Something in which all these objects are seen and which are analyzed, and after understanding they are all impermanent, you detach yourself from it. So for that, Vedantins say there is an Atman, but Vijnanavadins say there is only Vijnapti, Vijnanam. That's what he says. So that's why both of them, they also talk about attention, sati, awareness. Important thing. In Buddhi, in mindfulness, awareness is very important. Upasthana, upattana. They are establishing that awareness. Without being aware of it, you won't be able to practice non-attachment. If you are not aware, you may get trapped. You may be attached. So because you are aware of it, you are able to practice non-attachment. So in Sakshi, in witness, Sakshi the word, Sakshi is not exact equivalent of the absolute reality Brahman Atman, but it is one dimension of the absolute reality. And when the absolute reality is conceived to be the all-knowing witness, it is called Sakshi. So Sakshi is a reflection of our Atman in our Antakaranam. I mean mind, buddhi, chitta, ahankara. Chidabhasa is called. In a different category it is called. So in Vedanta teachings now in Advaita, again please remember this, only Advaita is talking about this recognition of the true nature as witness Sakshi, the Atman, that unchanging Atman that observes all mental and bodily phenomena, but without attachment, without any attachment or awareness. Attachment or aversion. It is not attached, but it is not averse. So in Buddhist mindfulness, which is called technically called sati or smriti, it is rooted in the practice of observing experience the present. So you are observing everything in the present, but you don't accept it, you don't grasp it, but you don't reject it. That means you are not being attached, but you don't have any aversion either. Built on the doctrine of anatta, because all these things are impermanent. So when we use the word anatta in Buddhism, we should not think it is a category. It is not an entity. It only signifies absence of any inherent essence, reality. Because Atma always signifies the existence of something that is everlasting, that is permanent, that is all-pervading, and Buddhists do not posit any such category. But Buddhists emphasize the absence of any permanent reality in the world in which we are living. There is nothing that is permanent in the external empirical phenomena. So both Vedanta and Buddhism try to step back from identification with things which are transient, which are sensations, feelings and emotions, and cultivate and practice a kind of non-judgmental, non-attached awareness. That is the only. So in a way, of course, I'm not going to historical concept, but you have to remember, all these great Buddhist scholars were deeply rooted in Vedantic tradition. So both the Mahayana and Hinayana Buddhists, especially of those of Indian origin, Vajrayana and this Tibetan Buddhism often shows the influence of some non-Vedic or non-Vedantic metaphysical traditions. But I don't think there was a single great Buddhist scholar who didn't have close understanding of Vedantic wisdom. All of them, whether Dignaga, Vasubandhu, Asanga, of course they belong to two different provinces within Indian subcontinent. Dignaga belonged to South India. He was South Indian Brahmin who was steeped in Vedantic studies. Vasubandhu and Asanga were two brothers from northwestern frontier regions, maybe today's Punjab, who are deeply rooted in Vedantic tradition. And many others, almost, of course, Nagarjuna and all others in their works we can see they demonstrate the influence of Vedanta. So anyway, that's a different subject. Now we're coming back to subject again, where we stopped last time. We're going back to Dhammapada. So the fifth one, Uttanena, Appamadena, Samyamena, Dhammena cha. So you can find Samyama and Dhamma used in Vedantic tradition. Dhamma means sense control. Samyama means self-restraining of the mental activities. The main is Deepam Kairatha Medhaviyam Ogu Nabhigirati. So all these qualities, that is effort, and then again Samyama, Dhamma, all these qualities enable a spiritual seeker to live in some kind of an isolation, practicing his own values. So such a person, he rouses himself into wakefulness by restrained, self-restrained, samyama, and subjugation of himself, of the senses, and make for himself an island. So the word is used here, deepam, deepam kairadha. He is making an island for himself, and no flood can engulf that island. So when a spiritual seeker is practicing apramada, wakefulness or mindfulness, he is creating around him a defense wall built on self-restraint, shama, mind control, and sense control. And none of the external forces, emotions and feelings can threaten him. On the other hand, those who don't practice this apramada, this wakefulness, they're ignorant, they're dull, they pursue a different path. Pamadam anuyujjanti bala dumedhino jana. So all these terms are bala, I mean those who are dull-witted, those who are not sufficiently intelligent to understand the importance of mindfulness. Pamadam anujjanti bala dumedhino jana apamadam cha medhavi dhanam setham nirekhati. So those who don't practice this mindfulness, they pursue a path of a wild path, means they allow their mind to be drawn into all objects. The senses drag their mind into all objects. Then what happens is, they get attached to everything. And when they are attached, they develop desire, Krishna. When they develop desire, then they develop clinging. And when they develop clinging, vasana, samskaras, and this life rotation continues, means this samsara, the rotating wheel of birth, life, death and rebirth continues. So they are not able to get nirvana. So this is the very important, the spiritual significance or the striking similarities from the perspective of spiritual psychology. So that's what I'm referring to. Again, this is from an academic point of view, you can see people arguing, both Vedantists would agree that mindfulness has anything to do with Sakshi Bhava. The word Sakshi is already used in many Vedantic textbooks. But remember, Sakshi is not exactly the all-knowing transcendental Brahman. That Brahman cannot even be called a witness. But empirically, when we try to understand that Atman, all that we can say is, it is the all-knowing transcendental reality. He knows everything, but is not attached to anything. Then we had another one, we get maybe the next verse in the Dhammapada, of course, the second chapter is this. Ma pamadam anuyujyadho ma kamaradi santhavam appamatto na jayando pappodi vipulam sukham. So, those who practice appamada, apramada, those who practice with wakefulness, those who practice awareness, mindfulness, they should not have any laziness. They should not be lazy, they should be always active. In the sense, they should be always alert against temptations. If they are not alert enough, they may be entangled by the empirical phenomena that they are witnessing. So how do we practice alertness? By reminding ourselves of the momentary nature, the anatta aspect of the empirical phenomena. Here again, anatta here means devoid of any permanent entity, any inherent existence. That's the meaning of anatta here. So, while practicing spiritual disciplines, a spiritual seeker should always spend their time properly, should always be alert and active and energetic. He should not foster a desire for the pleasures of the world. At the same time, he should not while away his time in laziness. Such a person established in appamada, wakefulness, is always meditating. He acquires bliss. He acquires the absolute inner bliss. Sukham, the word sukham is used here. Vipulam sukham. Great abundance of bliss by practicing appamada. Because when the mind is not attached to anything, when mind is able to look at everything, at the same time totally free from any entanglement, then it experiences a joy. It's not a joy in the empirical sense, it is a transcendental spiritual sense. When it's devoid of all vrittis, all impressions, all vasanas, then in Vedanta, such a mind is the same as Atman. So, Ramana Maharshi is one of the examples. Those who understand Shankaracharya's Vedanta, and if you look at Ramana Maharshi's philosophical position is technically called in Vedanta Drishti Srishtivada. That idea can be found in some of the Vedantic texts like Yoga Vasishtha, then Ashtavakra Gita, and here and there you find in Gaudavada's Kariga, And also in Ramana Maharshi's teaching, many of the teachings of modern Vedantins, you can find this. But according to traditional Advaita, that is a more complete and higher dimension of Advaita Vedanta. A few words should be explained here. So Ramana Maharshi's statement is that when mind is turned outward, it is the world. When the mind is turned inward, it is Atman. The point is, mind can never be turned inward, according to Vedantic. Paranji khani vidruna swayambhu. So, mind is designed, created in a way that it only looks outward. Tasman paran pasidi. So such a mind, so paranji khani vidranat swayambhu. So God created this mind in such a way that it only sees the external world. Tasmat paranna pasna antaratman. Such a mind or a senses do not see the Atman within. Because mind is nothing but the name of a function when it is involved in focusing our eyes, sense of touch, sense of smell, sense of taste, or sense of hearing. All the five senses of perception are being directed towards their respective objects of desire by the mind. Mind is the controller. And that is how mind is designed originally. Now, to turn such a mind inward is itself is an impossibility. But when you do that, it's no longer mind, then it's Atman. What it means is, in Vedanta, Drishti Srishtivada means you perceive, so there is a world. If you don't perceive, there is no world. Drishti is there, perception is there. Because you perceive it, this world is there. If you don't perceive it, the world is not there. When you transcend your mind, when you go beyond your mind, then you don't perceive this world, then you transcend this world. But below that, there is another approach, Srishti Drishtivada. When you look at this world, for some time you think that the world is real, Srishti is real, creation is real. And then you analyze this creation, how this creation came about, how it came into existence. And then finally you understand this creation itself is only vyavaharika, it is only an empirical reality, it's only a relative reality. It is in time, it is limited by time and space and causation. There should be something beyond time and space and causation. And that is the absolute reality. That is Paramartha Satta. And this empirical world is only Vyavaharika Satta, only an empirical relative entity. This is one approach. But this is the normal approach, the classical approach. But for an advanced Vedantic seeker, he doesn't have to think about this world at all. For him, he can say, the world of waking experience and the world of dream experience are equally unreal, according to Drishti Srishtivada. That is, creation follows perception. There is creation only because there is perception. When you perceive this world, it means you acknowledge the highest state. Then you analyze this world and then you realize this world is not absolute reality. So, when you look at Ramana Maharshi's teaching, this is for example, it is nothing but a very simple statement based on Drishti Srishtivada. Now, for a Buddhist, so far as he is concerned, everything in this world is devoid of any inherent reality. So he is looking at everything and is witnessing, but he is not attached. and actually is not seeing the world. That's why the Yogachara system doesn't accept the reality of external objects. The Yogachara system actually is the antithesis of Sautrantikas and Vaibhashikas of the Hinayana tradition. They are ultra-realist. Sautrantikas believe in the reality of external objects. They are momentary, but they are real. But Yogacharans will tell you they are momentary and they are also unreal. Only the witnessing subject, that is Vijnanam or Vijnapti, is real. Now, such a person who realizes this Vijnapti Matra through mindfulness, he always, apamato, he dhyayanto, dhyayanto in Sanskrit, papadi vivilamsukam. He experiences this inner bliss. So, Vedantin experiences inner bliss by his identification with the all-pervading absolute reality. A meditator in mindfulness tradition, he gets this blissful vipulam sukham, this inner bliss, by realizing that everything in this world is in a flux, it is momentary, it is changing, it is devoid of any inherent existence. Both experience this inner bliss. The inner bliss is what makes a meditator calm and quiet and solitude, because he is not attached. So the non-attachment aspect of mindfulness is the same as the non-attachment aspect of Vedanta. Pamadam apamadena yada nudadi pantito pajna pasad amaruhya asaku sokinim prajam pabbatantu babhumantu dhiro bale avekati. So a great scholar, a real scholar who understands this, a wise man, so to speak, he stands on a rocky in a higher altitude because he has established himself in apamada and is able to remove pamada. Pamada means again ignorance or the opposite of wakefulness. Such a person, he is called Dhiro Bali Avekati. The Dhira, he is endowed with higher wisdom. Dhi means higher wisdom. So such a person has acquired prajna and he stands on the higher pedestal of spiritual wisdom and is free from all kleshas. He is no more subjected to this samsara, this praditya samudpada, the three-point wheel, three-face wheel. The wheel is three-face, birth, life, death, rebirth, and it continues, the samsara. He is free from it. It's called klesha. And such a person, he stands on higher pedestal and he looked down upon suffering mankind from the heights of wisdom he has mastered. That is again a poetical creation, the wise man looks down. What it means is he is standing on the high pedestal of spiritual wisdom, established in apamada, in wakefulness, because he is able to be aware of everything and is also able to practice total non-attachment of everything that is aware of. So these are two important tools that mindfulness uses. One is knowing everything, awareness, and awareness is followed by complete detachment, non-attachment. Apamattu pamatteshu sutteshu bhujaguru abalasam vadi sighaso hitvaya adisumethasa. The intelligent person, the person who is fully awakened, he is wakeful, he is awakened. In the midst of people who are not practicing mindfulness. He goes, there are many parts in this great work, so, Dhammapada, which of course includes a lot of poetry. So along the great teachings you find the poetic freedom, and the poet uses certain metaphors and allegories to emphasize and to glorify the significance of mindfulness. That's frequently found in all ancient classical things. Little poetical fancy, exaggeration is common. That part is sacred only for the received believer. But from a purely impartial point of view, you can see the glory and greatness of the Buddhist concept of mindfulness. You are aware of everything and you are able to detach yourself. If you are not aware, you cannot detach. Because you cannot escape the world by remaining in this world without practicing mindfulness. If you are not aware, you will be trapped. And when you are trapped, you become part of the world. The samsara continues, the world continues. You cling to life because you have desire, trishna, and then the vasanas and samskaras accumulate in the mental system. You are reborn again to work out these samskaras and impressions, and this life wheel continues to rotate. So when you are aware of these, you are able to practice non-attachment. In Sakshi also, bodhrutvad, audasinyatvad, sakshitvam. That's a definition in Vedanta. Bodhrutva means being aware. You are awakened. Audasinyata means and being not non-involved. It's a technical meaning. You are indifferent. Of course, this indifference, this non-attachment is not a positive activity. It's a natural attitude when a seeker is not fighting with the world, nor is he befriending the world. If he confronts the world, if he is confronting the world, he cannot escape being trapped, attached. So he should not confront the world. He should not fight with the world. At the same time, he should not befriend it. So he remains aware of the essential anatta nature of the empirical phenomena. In Vedanta, the essential vyavaharika nature of empirical phenomena. Vyavaharika means coming and going, not existing all the time. So in a different way, I think in all higher mystical traditions of Abrahamic traditions, also in higher mysticism of Jewism or Judaism or Christianity, you find. At the higher level, when you become mystic, you are no more part of the received hierarchy, and then you develop a strong attachment to God, the God idea. And also India's Bhakti tradition is commenting. When they establish a connection with the transcendental divine, automatically you develop a kind of indifference to everything else. It's a natural byproduct of this higher wisdom, higher evolution in spiritual life. When you focus on this higher divinity, simultaneously you develop a higher insight into the impermanent nature, the transient nature of everything else, and you become somewhat indifferent, not bothering, because you focus on something higher. So this is what happens to a Buddhist meditator. He finds that there is nothing worthwhile to focus on, to be attached to in this empirical world, because it's anatta only, devoid of any permanence. So this this feeling of non-involvement, adasinyam in Sanskrit and Vedantic tradition, being indifferent, it comes. And that happens only when you are aware of it. If you are not aware, you will be trapped. So awareness and non-attachment. And a wisdom that comes out of it. That is the primary focus of mindfulness. So I think I may have maybe one more session and then we'll conclude. Then we'll take up some other important texts in Yogachara system. So thank you. Open to questions. Thank you.
Moses Swamiji, so you confirm that mindfulness is the same as cultivating a non-reactive consciousness, what we know as Sakshi Bhava. You also mentioned that the Ramana method is a little bit higher because it involves Drishti Srishti Viveka, which means we also have to engage in Atma-Vichara or questioning Koham, Anveshana, investigating who I am. So how do you say that the Buddhist transcendental experience is it equivalent to the Vedantic experience, or Vedantic experience goes a little one step further with Atma-Vichara also?
So Ramana Maharshi's teaching is based on one of the several methods that Shankaracharya established in his bhashyas. And Ramana Maharshi's who am I, the question, is based on the seventh verse of Mandukya Upanishad, Nanda Prakyamna, Vish Prakyamna, Veda Prakyamna, Prakyamna, Prakyam, etc. So you can see the bhashya. So Ramana Maharshi has taken his idea from Shankaracharya's commentary on the seventh mantra of Mandukya Upanishad. That is, when you pursue your spiritual search, when the pursuit is in you're following this inner inquiry, who am I? What am I? What's my true nature? When you can inquire, when you do this inquiry with a pure mind, after having acquired all the necessary prerequisites and qualifications, then you can reach the higher experience. So that's one thing. But that ideal is more closely linked to one of the two main approaches in Advaita. It's called Srishti Drishti and Drishti Srishti. So Drishti Srishti is a more transcendental approach, but it is meant for those who are highly qualified. As an intellectual academic subject, it is very fascinating, but it works only for those who are highly qualified. See, Shankaracharya was a big ship, a big ship which can ferry thousands of people across the river, morning till evening, So Ramana Maharshi was a great passenger. Taking one boat, he rowed across the river and reached the other bank of the river and went his way. But Shankaracharya was a ship that comes back again to carry other passengers. So in Shankaracharya's system you find this Ramana Maharshi's approach and also other several approaches you find in the Bhashya. But again I was mentioning that it is closely linked to this Drishti Srishti Vada. It can be, in some ways it can be compared with the Yogachara system, because in Drishti Srishti Vada, the world is totally denied. The reality of the world is totally denied. The reality of dream objects and the reality of waking state objects are equally unreal. But the world is like a dream according to this Drishti Srishti Vada. But according to the mainstream Shankaracharya's philosophy, which is meant for other people also, the world is only empirical reality. It is not totally unreal. So the waking state is not comparable to the dream state. The waking state is real in a higher sense, and the dream state is real in a different sense. Dream states are called pradibhasika, and waking state is called vyavaharika. That's the idea behind. Okay. where dream objects are like conceptual realities and waking state experiences are like empirical realities that we are part of, we can experience. You find traces of the former approach in Ramana Maharshi, and also surprisingly many of the Neo-Vedantis who are fascinated by this wonderful Drishti Srishti Vada, apparently very, but they don't have enough Sanskrit knowledge or patience to go through Shankaracharya's commentaries. You know. So this is something very interesting. The world is unreal. The world is like a dream. So, in fact, Shankaracharya has written pages in Brahma Sutra Bhashya to refute the Yogachara view that dream objects are as, or rather, the waking state experiences are as unreal as dream state experiences. Shankaracharya says, no, dream objects are pratibhasika and waking state experiences are vyavaharika. So waking state experiences have a higher reality, higher ontological reality than dream objects. That is. But in Yogachara will tell you they are the same. So that comes closer to the approach of Ramana Maharshi. Again, remember, Ramana Maharshi was a great bhakta also. Ramana Maharshi was a great devotee. You know. He used to encourage people to do japa, to practice. He was a great devotee of God also, Ramana Maharshi. So, that's okay. Thank you for the question. Yeah. Please. Yeah.
Hariyom Swami.
Yeah.
I have a doubt.
Yeah.
Alaya Vijnana Vada refers to individual consciousness.
Yeah.
There a person has to purify the consciousness and merge in that consciousness.
Yeah.
Then what is Tathagata Garbha? Is it Tathagata refers to universal consciousness? Just like Paramatma in Yogachara, because I'm getting confused in these two concepts. I'm getting confused.
I will try to dispel this confusion. Now, first of all, these two levels of evolution in Yogachara, one is Ale Vijnana and Pravarti Vijnana. So, Ale Vijnana, according to Ale Vijnana school, Alaya means repository, a place where all Vijnanas, all awareness, all forms are deposited. So, it is there, and that Ale Vijnana, it is the platform on which all these other objective experiences come and go. Alaya Vijnana remains intact. Pravarti Vijnana means the individual pieces of consciousness. So, according to Pravarti Vijnana, both are unreal. Of course, when you talk about Tathagata Garbha is a repository, and the original source of all awareness. That is the real nature of Buddhahood. When you realize the Tathagata Garbha nature of yours, you become a Bodhisattva, you become a Buddha. So that realization takes a lot of spiritual disciplines, and there are different views, on this subject. I think I have already discussed this in my earlier classes, but for dispelling your confusion, two phases in the evolution of Yogachara. One is Alaya Vijnanavada, that is Pravarti Vijnanavada. According to Alaya Vijnanavada, Alaya Vijnana, the fountain, the repository, the huge repository of all pieces of consciousness, levels of consciousness are already present there. When you see an object, you are recognizing that object as that object because its awareness is already there. You are able to project it and identify it as the object which is already there in the Alaya. Alaya means repository. Pravarti Vijnanavada, it becomes very close to Shunyavada in the sense that it denies even the existence of something like Alaya Vijnanavada. Tathagata Garbha means the original source of all Buddhahood, Tathagata nature, the original Tathagata nature. When you realize that, you become an arhat, you become enlightened, you become a bodhisattva, you become an enlightened person. When you realize your tathagata garbha nature. I have discussed this before I took up Shunyavada, but in case if you want, we can again after the Yogachara system is over, I can take up it again with the help of Yogachara Bhumi of Asanga, and there is also this Langavatara earlier work to discuss later. Okay, thank you.
Maharaj, when there's an appreciation of anatta, when that is discovered, when that is observed or experienced, this temporariness,
Yeah.
then would apramada somewhat naturally follow? Would that be a natural response? And then would the natural response to both those experiences reduce greed very naturally,
Yeah.
just as a life matter?
Yeah, exactly. See, behind greed for anything, there is that we may not be aware of it, that feeling that it is going to be there all the time. It is worthwhile. It is worth fighting for. It worth desiring for, because we attach some degree, some kind of permanence to whatever we strongly desire for. Otherwise, desire will not come. Because there will be no Trishna without some feeling of permanence to empirical things. When you realize apramada, or when you get established in apramada, what happens is you experience the essential impermanence of everything that you normally have a desire for, and that reduces greed. Am I clear?
Very clear, very clear.
Yeah.
So there was a question on YouTube, and they withdrew the question, so I can't read it. I'll have to offer it from memory. And the question is about reward and punishment, the sense of why we experience undeserved rewards and punishments. We're not aware of what we did or did not do in past lives.
Yeah. The best way to understand this subject from Buddhist perspective is to read the rebirth stories. Of course, it is explained in the Praditya Samutpada doctrine that karmas played a crucial role in your destiny. Whatever we do, whatever actions we perform, or any kind of activity, mental, intellectual, physical activity, will create samskaras and vasanas and impressions. They accumulate it. And again they create samskaras because we attach some degree of permanence to all these things. So we get attached. The attachment creates desire, clinging to life. When that happens, after suffering and enjoying in one life, we are born again, and these karmas and samskaras play a crucial role. In many respects, this is very similar to the yoga system of philosophy, Patanjali school. Patanjali means Bhashya, Vyasa Bhashya and others. So the role of karmas in our destiny is very crucial in understanding, central to a proper understanding of Buddhist philosophy. So that may be the only possible explanation for reward and punishment without any visible justification for either of this. Again, this is only for individual. And one point I want to mention, frequently people ask this question from a sociological, cultural, civilizational perspective. So I would say Buddhism is so essentially an individual-oriented religious tradition, practice tradition, not a society-oriented, because it's not a congregational religion. It is essentially an individualistic religion, Buddhism. The congregational religion and its other important doctrines are linked to Abrahamic tradition, where they believe one central prophet who has taught certain things, a specific book and certain practices. That's natural for all organized religions or congregational religious traditions. Buddhism is essentially an individual specific tradition, and their karma plays a very important role. And that can be very well demonstrated if you read the teaching of the rebirth stories of Buddha. In the light of rebirth stories, you can see how Buddha himself evolved from stage to stage. 443 rebirth stories, Jataka tales you can find. Karma is one central guiding principle. Okay, thank you. Please.
You mentioned Buddhism is an individualistic religion.
Yeah.
But earlier when you mentioned that the Sangam is important in one branch of Buddhism. The Sangha is.
Yeah.
So I'm a little bit
That's true. I will make it. Thank you for the question. So, the doctrine of karma plays a very crucial role. It's very central to Buddhist philosophy. So, when I said that Buddhism as a individual-specific, individual-centric aspect to it, what I meant was that Buddhist practice of meditation, mindfulness, all these are essentially for individuals to practice. Buddhist Sangha is there, that is true. In that respect, it is somewhat congregational in nature. Buddha was the first great spiritual teacher, religious teacher who founded an organization actually, a systematic organized monastic tradition. In fact, in the Tripitakas, there are one of the Tripitakas specifically deals with the disciplines of Buddhist Sangha. But at the same time, because the doctrine of karma plays a very important role in Buddhism, and karma is always linked to one single individual's actions and their results, which we call karma, phala, the results of actions, which again decide his destiny. So when you do certain things, it creates a desire, trishna, clinging to life, that again eventually causes you being born again after suffering and enjoying in this life, and again the life continues, sukha, dukkha both, and again actions and activities, and again the result, and this life continues after death, again you are reborn. So this samsara continues. And Praditya Samutpada explains all this continues. So in that respect, it's the individual. Look at Buddha's rebirth story, which I referred to earlier. Buddha himself evolved from one stage to another stage, almost 543 different life cycles Buddha lived. Eventually he became the great Buddha, Gautama Buddha. So in each life, Buddha was born as one individual. And in each life he demonstrated some unique spiritual qualities which made him stand out. And he was eventually evolving, and finally he became the great Gautama Buddha. So you can see the connection between karmas and individual spiritual evolution. This is very common in Buddhism. The karma and its effect, how central it is to one's spiritual destiny. So that makes it somewhat individual specific or person specific. It's not congregational. It's not that a community altogether go to heaven or something like that. No, you don't find it in Buddhism. Each individual has to practice the Chattvari Arya Satyani, Four Noble Truths, and then eightfold spiritual disciplines, Samyak Smriti, Samyak Drishti, Samyak Ajiva, Samyak Sankalpa, Samyak Samadhi, and so on. All this you have to practice, each individual. Eventually you get nirvana. It's not one entire congregation, the Buddhist Sangha gets nirvana. An individual person gets nirvana. Essentially, it had also a monastic orientation during the early phase. Okay, thank you for the question. Very important question. Thank you.
Thank you. Hey, Guruji, I'm having a doubt. You are saying Alaya Vijnanavatam is individual consciousness. That means there are many individual consciousness. That is equal to their accepting jivas, no? In practical sense.
Alaya Vijnana is collective consciousness, repository of all consciousness. Pravritti Vijnana is individual consciousness. Yeah. Alaya Vijnana is a repository of all consciousness. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Then
Alaya means a house, a place where things are stored. Yeah. Okay. That's it.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
Happy to serve. Thank you, Maharaj.
Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat Sri Ramakrishna Pranamastu. Yeah. Thank you.